You're listening to the Fitness Rants Podcast, the show where unfiltered conversations meet real-world health and fitness.
We cut through the noise and deep dive into the truth behind health, nutrition, physique development, and the fitness industry itself.
We're your hosts, Ross Gilmore and Malin Blumdahl, experienced coaches and educators who have been part of the fitness industry for over 15 years.
If you're a coach, high performer, or someone just tired of mainstream nonsense, you're in the right place.
Now let's get into today's episode. Welcome to another episode of the Fitness Rants Podcast, and today Mal and I are going to talk about why you should lift like your life depends on it.
Because it kind of does. Certainly your quality of life.
Absolutely, because this is something that I think we both felt inspired to sort of come in and talk about, because we've had conversations with each other many times, but certainly with clients recently, and I think you've had a couple of examples. Certainly I know I've had a few of my clients where this has become a very prominent discussion point, not only in the sessions, obviously, with them, but just in their households and amongst their friends and family. So I thought it'd be good. Let's just dive into the topic of sarcopenia and many of the other
matters beyond just aesthetics, because it can easily get lost just with, look good naked, toning, like this. I talk a lot about that, obviously, on my social media, but it's because it's what people want often when they come when they're younger, is just look good, but strength training just goes so way beyond that. And yeah,
so true, because I think when I ask my clients now, especially those that are around our age, I'm not saying that we're ancient or anything like that. Certainly we're at a point now, though, we're not like we were in our 20s. And as we're now, you're 40, I'm 38, certainly your mindset does start to shift a lot more towards, well, okay, the aesthetics are still important. That was something that was important in our 20s and 30s. And anyone who says it isn't even still important would be lying, because you want to look good as you age, but you also want to feel your best as well. But that second part, that feeling your best and everything that comes with that, quality of life, trying to stave off sort of pains and niggles and injuries, it's that stuff, the latter stuff, that starts to become of a higher priority than the aesthetic part.
And it's not the norm. That's the thing. Like strength training progressively, consistently amongst the population isn't the norm. It isn't what most people do. And there's, I think, a lot of maybe limiting beliefs and beliefs around like what you should do or need to do in order to make a massive difference to your quality of life. And it's actually not that huge of a step that I think for health, that it's not as big of a step that people think. So it's just sort of talking about why it's so important, and I suppose the power that you have to turn things around when it comes to like your quality of life and longevity by strength training.
100%. Well, that's a thread. Let's just pull on that thread for a moment of what do we think are the main reasons or limitations? What's the stuff that's holding people back from wanting to get into the gym? And I think specific to that population that is often feeling like they're too old. Maybe there you go. That's one reason straight out the gate. But what about those reasons that are just stopping people wanting to go to the gym, or maybe even the justifications that hold people back from getting started, especially if it's not something they were doing already for their teens and their 20s into their 30s and 40s?
Yeah, it's maybe like, beliefs around, strength training is just for bodybuilders, or it means that you're really vain if you just train for aesthetics, or even if it's not for aesthetics, but training that way. So that's maybe, especially for a lot of women, they gravitate more towards group classes and stuff like that, but which is beneficial in other ways, but it just doesn't have the same, it doesn't replace progressive strength training in terms of sarcopenia. And this is obviously what this podcast is about, is talking about that and the harmful effects that has if it's not mitigated. So
I think also just on a higher level, but also on a deeper level as well, a lot of people don't want to go to the gym because they feel intimidated. And so, okay, well, why do people feel intimidated? Well, a couple of reasons. There's the societal thing of a new person coming into an environment and feeling a bit threatened by all these people who are very attractive, in shape, etc. And that sort of shines that magnifying glass on themselves that they're probably not where they want to be. But then there's also the competence part of it as well, is that you're coming into a new environment and you're a newbie. You're absolutely brand new at something. And how many people, as kids, it's terrifying when you're new at something, but you're young and you're adaptable, and you sort of can pick up skills as long as you show up often enough and you apply yourself, assuming that you're just not completely skill retarded, so to speak. Some people are just, they just don't pick up things as quickly as others. And okay, that's a inter-individual thing, fine. But let's assume that you are just sort of normative in the middle. Well, let's just then assume that you're maybe in your 30s and 40s now. You've literally went 35 years of your life not being particularly physically active, and you're coming into an environment where people have either been doing it for 4 or 5 years already, or they've been doing it since they were kids. And so I think that in of itself, it's how people look, and it's the intimidation of all these big muscular men and women in the gym, but it's also just the fact that you're just not good at something yet, and it feels scary to put yourself in a position where you can suck at something. And not only that it doesn't feel very nice either. It feels very uncomfortable, both physically and psychologically. So I think that's a big deterrent for a lot of people. And I don't think necessarily that social media or gym culture sometimes helps with that. I think what is often portrayed on social media is that, it's just, people making excuses, and, that if you're, coming into the gym environment, you should be doing things a certain way. And so I get it. I get why in the modern day and age, especially with the way social media is, it feels very intimidating, the idea of getting into the gym in a new environment.
I think that there is more light being shown though on the benefits of resistance training and the importance of resistance training. Certainly I'm getting more, when I'm speaking to women, like ladies reaching out, there is a lot more, I hear a lot more, I just want to build muscle and get strong. Like there's definitely more of that, but yeah, I just don't think it's enough. And I don't think that like the maybe not harmful effects, but like the result of not training progressively, what impact that has on your health, which I think is the next point that we're getting on. Like why should you, or getting to is why does it matter so much to protect your muscle?
Well, I think even before that is you sort of touched on it a bit earlier, is that a lot of people gravitate towards the group fitness environment. And so, okay, as part of that intimidation piece, okay, well, I don't want to be in there on my own, not really knowing what I'm doing. And often there's that, that fear that people have of people are going to think that I'm stupid because I'm in here and it's clear that I don't have a clue what I'm doing. But then in reality, we tell clients this all the time, listen, no one cares what you're doing in the gym. People are so focused on themselves that they're not really paying attention to what you're doing for the most part. So then the easy route for many people is, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, but if I go with a group of people, maybe even I go with a couple of my friends or family, I go to an environment where I can just be told what to do. Yeah. And it takes away the thinking, it takes away the sort of intimidation, because at least you're with people or you're in a group environment, so it's more motivating, more entertaining as well in that regard.
Yeah. And doing something, we're not here to shit on group exercise, I guess, but it's, doing something is better than nothing, but it's not the same as progressive, and I think that's the key thing. It doesn't replace it, like cardio weights.
Anything that encourages people to get into doing some form of regular exercise, it's a great start. But I think to your point, and even you can get a lot of benefit from it initially for a few years, but in particular your audience, because our audiences and our client base is quite different nowadays. Most of the coaches I work with, I don't have to convince them that resistance training is a good idea. They're already doing it. Yeah. But you sometimes have clients that come to you that they've been in that group environment for quite a while, and they're almost like reluctant or scared or worried about making that transition into, but I've never really followed a proper structured plan. Or if they've done it before, they've done it, but they've never really felt the buy into it. So they've sort of just like backed out of it. And now they realize that actually I can't really try to hide away from this anymore. I need to actually get into the gym and start lifting weights. But I do agree. I feel as well that the awareness is increasing around resistance training. And I do feel that the want for many females to go in and lift in the gym is increasing as well. But it's not just females. We see many guys as well, though, that what I hear from the male side of things is often once you reach a certain age is just like, oh, I'm told, I'm past it.
I just feel like it's something that should be prescribed to everybody from your doctor. It's like, it shouldn't even be a choice, like as we age, because it's that powerful. Like it shouldn't be, it literally, once you hit 40, if you're not already training at that point, like start resistance training. If you have it should be part of what you sort of have to do. You should mandate it.
I like it. Mandated lifting, gain sessions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it wouldn't work in practice, but it should.
100%. Well,
I wish it did.
I think that sort of gets us then to we've talked about some of the reasons why people maybe stay away from it or why they find it hard to get into it. Why is this so important? I think this was sort of inspired by some of the stories that many of our clients started telling us and what they were seeing about their parents. And in one question that it's important to ask, not just our clients, but just ask the listener, you listening to this right now, if you've got parents, friends, family around you, aunties, whoever it is, look around you.
Sisters.
What state are they in at the moment? I know that sounds like quite a harsh statement to make, but what I mean very specifically related to this podcast is, what is their physical health like? Yeah, what is their mental health like? What is their quality of life looking like? I cannot tell you, well, I could tell you actually, I couldn't tell you over the course of the last 10 years, the amount of times that clients come to us and they're talking about, oh, well, you know, my grandmother fell and she broke her hip, or oh, I'm seeing my mum now and she's really starting to struggle to do basic things. Like you said.
Just like walking, like I had one client who was talking about her aunties that were not that old, like, you know, she's not too old herself, her aunties, so maybe in their 50s, who they struggle to like sit down and stand back up without back pain and knee pain and, you know, pains and aches. And it's what's frustrating is that it's gotten to a point where it's almost like it's just how it is. People almost like resign to, well, I'm old now, or like when you reach maybe not your 50s, but certainly like, you know, 60s, 70s, that, well, yeah, like this is just what aging is.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we can't prevent aging. Like everybody will age, and aging is a privilege. But at the same time, there's a lot of things you can do. You don't have to accept not being able to carry your own body weight, sit down and stand up from the toilet when you're like 60 without pains and aches, or not being able to cope with a fall without breaking your bones. You know, like it's not just about the effects of sarcopenia and muscle and weakness, but also obviously your bone health and strength. If there's no loading or impact that can help, like prevent that from happening, the decline. So yeah, you don't have to accept it, but you have to actively prevent it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we know that one of the highest causes of mortality in the elderly population, in particular those that are above, I can't remember if it's 60 or 65 where the floor is, but then when it goes up from there.
60, I think after 60 is where like certainly like the effects of like sarcopenia, and it speeds up.
And there's no coincidence then that in terms of when people fall, their ability to live a quality of life, and then also potentially just in terms of mortality, actually dying from as a result of those falls, increases exponentially past that point.
Yeah, like frailness, weakness, it's a big problem.
And so when we said at the beginning of the podcast, lift like your life depends on it. I mean, every year and every decade that you spend accumulating experience under the bar, if you want to metaphorically call that, but essentially doing resistance training, you're essentially making deposits into your long-term metabolic health, your strength, your resilience, and it's things that are going to keep you alive longer, but it's also going to make you more resilient as you age as well, mentally and physically as well.
I think often when I speak to women, because I'm 40 now, and so a lot of the clients that I speak to gravitates maybe are in their 40s, and something I hear often is that something happened after 40. It's like I turned 40, 42, 43, 40, and that's when my body is different. I'm storing belly fat and my body's changed, and it's not like you turned 40 and then that just flipped.
It wasn't like a switch.
It's an effect of what you did in your 30s. It's just that you didn't see it when you were 31, 32. It's when you hit that sort of those 10 years, and that's also where sarcopenia, like gradual muscle loss, start. I think it's 3 to 5% in a decade. So from 30 to 40 that you lose muscle. And maybe also lifestyle, like gaining weight and stuff like that. If you have kids, things like that, stress is higher. So it's when you hit 40, that's when all of those accumulated effects suddenly is visible. It's like, oh, I hit 40 and now I look completely different. So it's like, well, you can start in your 30s, you can start preventing that. Like I was looking at, like, in terms of like my body, I feel like it looks exactly the same now in my 40s as it did in the 30s. Yes, I'm 10 years older, but I don't look any different really. And a lot of that is because of strength training, eating well and strength training. It just maintains your youth.
100%.
So, yeah.
I think speaking on that as well, because you've sort of mentioned there about how your physique looks quite similar now to what it did when you were in your 30s. But I think if we look at the aesthetic component, that's not often the main driver for a lot of people as they get into their 40s. I'll give you an example of my client, and she won't mind me mentioning this because, you know, it's something that is really a big driver, motivator for her now. When I asked her, like, why are you here and why is this really important to you? And she said, yeah, like, look, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Ross, direct. I want to see physical change. However, why I want to work on that is that this is just going to be a byproduct of me prioritizing myself, taking care of my strength, bone density, muscle mass, because I'm seeing what's happening to my mum now as a result of not doing any of this stuff. And I see what she's going through and it petrifies the life out of me. I do not want to end up like that. And I think when you have such a, you know, someone who's so close to you, you know,
how old is she?
I think she's over 70 at this point, but I mean, she's struggling. And the client herself is in her 40s.
That's what I was asking. Yeah, your client.
So imagine your client in your 40s, but parents that are maybe 30, maybe plus years older, and you're starting to see a window into your future. And it's almost like that direct window of, if I don't prioritize this is what I've got looking forward to what they got this to look forward to. And it literally, the thing is, I can imagine you literally seeing that going, like, for her, she said she's petrified of the idea of ending up like that. So what's going to be more motivating for her? Is it going to be a 12-week transformation and just forcing a short-term result? Or is it going to be, I don't want to end up like that? And you could ask her, and every day of the week it will be, I want to be able to, when I'm that age, enjoy a much higher quality of life.
I think like your 30s, if you start strength training, lifting, or if you start early, like I did, I started in my mid-20s, like quite early, but like your 30s, your body is in a different state 40s versus your 30s. And I've definitely felt something shift even with myself. I can't say it's just because I turned 40, but my mindset have definitely shifted. Like my 30s was all about, like, I did, a few fat loss phases, and I did my one and only bulking phase and building phase and strength and building glutes. It was all about having big glutes and being strong, and like, and it makes it exciting because you have goals to work towards. But I've definitely felt a shift in the last few, I would probably say the past year, that I don't really care too much about big, massive glutes anymore. Like I'm quite happy with I like my level of lean. I like the muscularity that I have. I just want to take care of my joints and my body now, and I want to take care of my fitness. So I want to do some more cardio and stuff like that, and just continue to train, but more for like health and longevity. That I could change my mind in 6 months if I'm going to do a bulk or a strength. I don't know. That could change, but I definitely feel like something has shifted. So I think that there's something there with once you move into your 40s that like, okay, well, yeah, like there's a shift there. So.
And this is just a complete sidebar because it just got me thinking about when it comes to personal trainers, online coaches in the industry, and obviously with us being a bit older, more experienced, me being 38, you being 40, we've been in this game.
You've said that twice now. Do you have to?
just reminding you there. I'm also just reminding the audience that I've also got an older woman as well. So there you go. But I think with a lot of the coaches that are in their early to mid 20s, and I mean, we don't say this to be patronizing, but it's just the reality of it is, you don't have the life experience to tell people in their 30s that they don't have time, that they just don't want it enough, that it's not a priority to them, because you don't know what priorities are to them yet at this point in time, because you've not been through that. You've not been through their life. Like they've literally had 15 years plus of experience going through their 20s, 30s, and into their 40s. You haven't navigated that yet. Yeah. And I think, yes, don't get me wrong, you don't have to be 40 to know what it is to show up to the gym consistently. You don't have to be 40 to know what it's like to look after your nutrition. But that's not it. And I think that's the problem, is it's often looked in a bit of a vacuum versus, well, what about all of the experiences they've been through up to that point? What if they've got kids? How's their career unfolded if they went through that time? How's their financial situation? I mean, you don't know all of those things. So I think that was just an interesting thing, is that many of the younger coaches are very out of touch with what it is to actually go through that aging process and everything that comes with that. Now, we're not saying that gives them a free pass or it provides lots of major excuses for them, but it's different. It is definitely different for a number of reasons. Yeah. Not necessarily related to your ability to lose fat or anything like that, because we know the whole, this idea that, it must be that metabolism's slow. We know that actually from a metabolism standpoint, your BMR doesn't actually decline particularly significantly until you get to, what is it, 60? Yeah, so onwards. So, but circumstances are different. Yeah. And the obligations you have and the sort of plates that you're spinning, things change in that regard. Yeah. I think one thing it was important to get onto is we've looked a lot at the sarcopenia lens at the moment. And of course, it's important. We haven't even talked
too much about that yet, though.
Well, is there anything else you want to just sort of get into with that?
I suppose that what is the actual... maybe we have covered it enough, but like what are the consequences of muscle loss?
I think metabolic health for a start.
Metabolic health, hormonal health, weakness. Maybe we have covered most of these things indirectly already.
Maybe a few things that we could just open up a little bit. I think, first of all, let's start with the metabolic health side of things. We know that as certainly females, we both work, I work with mostly females, you work with only females, that as they get towards their late 30s into their 40s and 50s, metabolic concerns start to come up. Those concerns around things like PCOS, and that's obviously, if we take PCOS as just an example, that is actually starting to show up a lot earlier and earlier nowadays. We're seeing females in their 20s, early 20s, starting to present with this. But then, of course, there's other conditions that come up as a result. And what we noticed is that as many females are moving into their 30s and 40s, especially if they haven't done any form of resistance training, is that different expressions of insulin resistance start to come up, right? And one of the best ways, especially if you're a female who's got any condition where insulin resistance is a sort of component of that, well, one of the best ways you can go about improving that is lifting weights. Strength training is going to it's one of the best things you can do to improve your insulin sensitivity. So
to get the energy into the cells.
That's it. Make yourself better utilizing, like partitioning glucose, etc., etc. So it helps you to manage your blood sugar. It helps you to maintain a leaner physique as well. So there's a host of benefits that go with that. I think as well, outside of that, outside of the metabolic side of things, and I see this with both male and female, if you're trying to maintain a healthy ovarian and menstrual cycle, then resistance training is going to be huge for that as well. On the male side of things, certainly I can speak from experience that as a male, as you get to 35,
it's massive.
Your testosterone is going to start declining. Now, that of course is going to be experienced differently between male to male. The amount of decline is going to be different from male to male. But one thing for certain is that if you've not done any strength training up to that point and you've not got at least a decent base level of muscle tissue, you're going to feel that a lot more than someone who has more muscle mass. So
and that always annoys me as well, because men, you're like primed for muscle mass.
Yeah.
Like hormonally, with your hormonal environment, you just don't have to do that much in order to get quite good response, versus females. So it's like be in shape, guys.
So there's the metabolic health side, but there's the hormonal health side, both for males and females. I think just the final point to touch on, and I've been asked this question a number of times, like if you weren't, competing in bodybuilding, or if you weren't training for like that physical goal, or, to build muscle mass, whatever else, what would you actually train for? And, I think a lot of people would probably expect me to turn and say something like I'd train for performance, or I'd train for, some other popular goal, or whatever the fad is at the time, high rocks, whatever else. But actually the number one thing that I would put on the table would be mental health.
Yes.
The number one thing I would train for above anything else would be the mental health component.
That is a big one. Like this, and this is something I don't really talked much about, but this is why I started training. It was like mental health, and just seeing really quickly like how powerful that is. Like that is what got me going. And then the physical side, I was completely oblivious to that. I barely knew. This was before social media. I think maybe I'd read a fitness magazine, but I barely knew that strength training, like that bit, like that connection between training and building muscle or losing weight, like that was not even a consideration. But then I was just like, I think I was in the bath one day and I like flexed my quad, or I tensed my, I'm like, what the hell is that? And I saw my muscle, and I'm like, and then I saw my body changing, and it was almost like a shock, like, because that was never the purpose. But I built muscle, and I was like, this is quite nice. And, then came the confidence from seeing my body change and actually looking at obviously a lot better. And I was, again, quite young then. But then, so it never started with that.
Wanting to change how you looked,
wanting to change how I looked. Yeah. No, it was all like just, it was like just miserable. So it's so powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I technically, I suppose I've never really thought about this that much, but I got into lifting weights not also for changing my aesthetic at all. Yeah. I was young at the time playing rugby. I wanted to play rugby at a higher level. And the thing is, if you're a 14-year-old lad and you're, certainly when I got to, I was 15, 16, I started getting asked to play in the first 15 senior team because, my brother Greg and I were, we fairly had a bit of a talent for it. And so, but we also had more physicality at our age than many of the other 16-year-olds at the club did. So it was okay, well, we want you guys to start getting involved. But what we sort of learned very quickly is you go and play against adults, and we were getting hit around, and it wasn't very fun when you've not got as much weight on your body or as much muscle mass. So we took that really seriously, and I remember we showed up to the next pre-season, and I remember the guys' team were just like, what did you guys do? But the funny thing is that how physical we were on the field, and we were starting to we were 17-year-old guys, and we were like bossing around all these grown men in our games in our league, and they were just like thinking to themselves, well, what is going on here? And it was literally just down to we started lifting, we started prioritizing resistance training, and for us it was about the performance and being better at a sport. But then
that's still quite specific though, in a way. Like there was a purpose.
There was a purpose to it, but the funny thing is that the comments we'd get all the time would be on our physical appearance.
Yeah.
So you get your comments from the other guys in the team and in the club, and they'd be like, you guys are in great shape. And so it's just so funny. We never did it for the byproduct of looking a certain way, but as a result,
I think that's also because of your sports background. When you're often like the athleticism is of most sports is like part of that, right? Yeah. So, but when I started training, there was no woman in the strength room. Like there wasn't even a single woman when I first started. I just did that because I thought cardio was boring back then and for the next 20 years. So, but it wasn't really a thing that women lifted weights. They were all doing cardio.
This is true.
I kind of went to the gym, first of all, that's where the guys were. So I was like, I'm going to be where the nice looking guys are. You know what I mean? I don't want to be with a woman. And then I was like, okay, now I'm seeing that actually it does something to your body that I didn't foresee.
100%. I think the sort of key high level takeaway from that is that I think, sure, if you want to train for an aesthetic goal, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. Of course, that's certainly something we both focus a lot on with our clients.
But it's a side effect.
But I think it's so important to have other components that are, you know, as important or even, if not more important to that. Because it's powerful when you have something else outside of the physical transformation helping to drive why you want to keep showing up. It really does make all the difference. And I think for, you know, almost in a way of rounding out this topic is...
We have one more thing to cover though that we haven't covered yet.
What have I missed?
It's like because that's how it all kind of started, is like, well, what should you do if you're somebody who has never really strength trained, or who believe that, you know, basically you don't have to train like a bodybuilder, you don't have to train 4 or 5 days a week, you know, it's not that big, but what should you do?
I suppose the question is, where do you start?
Yeah, where do you start? That's where I'm getting at with this. And what I recommend everybody, or most, you know, everybody should do is like twice a week, like full body, 2 times a week, but have a program, have a structure, and stick to it, and do it as part of your routine while you're brushing your teeth, while you're eating food, and eating like just twice a week as a foundation. It doesn't have to be more than half an hour in the beginning. Just 4 exercises, you know, like a pull, a push, hinge, like leg press, like just like full body twice a week, and do that for 1 year. And you know, you don't have to lift super heavy. It's not about like 3, 4 like low rep range or anything like that. Just 10 to 15 reps. Like just start progressing on that.
But isn't it interesting how many people, when if you literally propose that to them, like, oh, but is that really enough? Well, it's definitely more than what you're doing right now.
But thinking that it's not enough, it's what's holding you back from actually starting, you know?
But it's just that point though, is like, is that enough? It's like, but what are you doing right now? You're not doing anything. So it's like, that's literally more than what you're already doing.
Even 1 half an hour strength training a week is better than no training a week. It will have an impact.
Exactly.
If you've never trained, if you're completely like, no, I'm not doing anything, or maybe just doing like running or like cardio, like just once a week, 1 to 2 times a week will make a difference if you do it consistently. And that's where that's the key thing, not training 4 days a week for, you know, 3 months, or getting excited about a new program and then you don't train for 3 months. 100%. And then, you know, it's like, I think it's important because we spoke about this off air about, okay, we're not saying that it's just you lift weights twice a week and it's going to solve all of your problems. We're not saying that, but it's a massive lever to pull on, right? And sure, we're not saying that you shouldn't still prioritize moving often. So for example, you know, going out for walks and moving more frequently is important to do. You know, looking at cardiovascular health, making sure that you've got at least some form of aerobic activity across your week, even if that's once a week. That's going to be great, not just for your heart, but it's also great for your mind and for clarity. And I think 30 to 60 minutes cardiovascular activity per week minimum, walking, and 2 full body strength training sessions per week. Like if you do that, you do plenty.
Yeah, and that's plenty to safeguard your health, and certainly make it, if you've not already started by now in your 40s, if you do that starting now and you're in your 40s or 50s, the difference in your quality of life is going to be very different.
Yeah, because that's also important, is that yes, the earlier the better, but it is never too late as long as you're alive. Even if you start in your 70s, like Train with Joan, we spoke about that.
Yeah,
I'm sure everybody, a lot of people are familiar with her. She started training when she was 70, and she looks like a total badass. I know other Alan Aragon, like his wife's parents, like I follow like a lot of like these kind of accounts, and basically where people start training at an older age and the effects that has on their quality of life and the physical appearance is like, yeah, like it is literally like your body will still respond. You're not dead. You know, will still respond, and it will. You start. You know, you can really reverse the sarcopenia, really offset that, or slow it down, reverse it. So, but if you don't do anything, then it's going to happen and you're going to suffer. There you
go. Well, I think that's then the closing message is that if you haven't started already, doesn't matter what age you are, start now.
Like, yeah.
It can literally be
even
2 times a week. Even if you're 70, it can literally be 2 times a week for 30 to 45 minutes. Literally keep it really simple. If you're unsure, hire a trainer or a coach. And that's not necessarily a plug at us. If you want to go work with an in-person trainer, find someone that you trust, go do that. Eat enough protein. Get your cardio in at least once a week for 30 to 60 minutes. And the job's a good one, I think, like that.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Fitness Rants podcast.
If you got value from this conversation, be sure to hit subscribe on either YouTube or your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss any of our weekly rants.
Oh, and if you're feeling generous, we would really appreciate it if you would drop us a 5-star rating or a review, because it would help more listeners like you to find the show.
If you haven't already, be sure to connect with us on Instagram. We'll leave our handles in the episode description.
Thanks for tuning in. We look forward to having you back for our next episode.